So it's the middle of September right now. There's a lot going on. I feel like we both have very different versions of a lot going on at this point in the year. But I just wanted to jump in with like the sort of intro that you give, like when you have to explain to someone what you do who doesn't know. Do you have like a quick elevator speech version or a succinct thing you explain to family at the Thanksgiving table or something like that?
The super short version is just I review technology from the inside, and that encompasses a portion of what I do. You know, taking things apart, seeing how they work, how they're put together, how they're manufactured. That's kind of what I enjoy doing and what I enjoy showing off.
I feel like that's one of those things that you hear it and the natural follow-up question is like, oh, have you always been into like working with your hands or like taking things apart, that sort of thing? I imagine it's probably a yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of my earliest memories, and this is super illegal now, but when I was a little kid, there weren't as many laws into like which seat you should be sitting in and like which car seat you should be in and stuff. And so I would sit in the passenger seat next to my mom, but I would sit upside down with my head underneath the dashboard so I could look up and see all the wires behind the dashboard, like next to the glove compartments.
Yeah.
And like she would just drive around and I'd be upside down with my head in the dash just so I could pretend like I knew what was going on. Sounds weird, but it was super interesting to me at the time.
That is like a thanks in hindsight, mom, but also what were you thinking, mom? But thanks, mom. Like, you know,
Right?
it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was my seatbelt at? You know, there's no way even close to being on at that point.
Don't try this at home now or in your car now, kids,
Yeah.
if you're listening. Okay. What is the story? What's the story behind the name? I think you probably have this sort of like people don't know if your name is Jerry or not happening. I wonder where JerryRigEverything came from. It makes intuitive sense to me, but maybe you have like a story behind coming up with it.
Yeah, so most of the time, like when someone recognizes me on the street, you know, at a restaurant or at the store or something like that, they'll be like, "Hey, you're Jerry, right?" And I'll just kind of roll with it. But my name is actually Zack.
Yeah.
The JerryRigEverything came from when I originally started YouTube, my channel name was Green Dew Ocean because I really liked Mountain Dew at the time.
Nice.
But I realized as I had, you know, a couple thousand subscribers that, you know, YouTube could actually be like a viable job. And like I would have to come up with a slightly more memorable and reputable name, I guess. And so I was laying in bed one night at like 2 a.m. when most of my good ideas come. And I realized that, you know, my channel and kind of like the theme of what I do is, you know, jerry rigging stuff. And Jerry Rig is also the name of my grandpa, who is kind of like one of the people I really look up to. You know, when he first got married, he lived in the back of a gas station. And then when he died, he, you know, was a very, very successful businessman, had a bunch of houses. It was just a really cool, he's someone I look up to a lot. And so Jerry Rig is both a combination of the phrase Jerry Rig as well as kind of like a way to remember my grandpa, Jerry.
That is pretty cool. I know now. I think when I first was watching your videos, I was like, oh yeah, Jerry. I definitely thought that was your name. So I'm glad that that's much more clear. Well, is that your current account though? You had that name for your current account that you changed to JerryRigEverything?
So back then, so I think I've been doing YouTube for like 9 or 10 years. Back then, you couldn't change your name. You had to just delete your account and start over. And so you'll notice if you go back to my first videos, there's like 40 of them that are kind of all uploaded on the same day or the same week. And that's because I deleted my old account and uploaded all the videos to a new account with the correct name. Now YouTube is way more, you know, you can change your name whenever you want.
Wow. So you had like a moment where you were like, oh, I'm going to be doing this YouTube thing to a degree where I want to be proud of the name of it. I think I should make that conscious decision. When in your life cycle of a YouTuber was that exactly?
It was, so like when I first started uploading videos, I kind of just wanted to do it just as kind of like a video journal of all my different projects. You know, I used YouTube for a lot of things, and I just kind of want to like contribute back to that that platform. And one of the ways I was using it is my Jeep at the time broke down, and so I got on YouTube and I found someone with the exact same problem I had. And instead of taking it to a shop to fix it for $1,000, this guy could fix it for 80 by himself. And so I messaged him and I was like, your video was so helpful to me and saved me so much money. Like, why do you do this? And he said, it's because I want to decrease world suck, help people out. And at the same time, YouTube pays me a little bit of money. And so that was kind of like what got me going on the platform. And I kind of, I filmed my automotive projects, motorcycle projects. And then I realized it was a conscious decision that if I wanted to grow my audience past, the small circle of people interested in automotive repairs, I would have to expand the type of content I made into phone teardowns and then durability tests and then into EVs and then building my own EV and then accessibility and just kind of grow it out from there. Each kind of chapter of my channel is a conscious growth decision, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the same stuff I've done, where like you have a core topic that you start off with, but you have more interests and you're able to sort of loop them in because they work with the theme and you're good at it. Obviously, like I watch you tear apart a phone sometimes, and I just sort of like mesmerized a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's kind of awesome that you just sort of know right off the top of your head. Also, do you know right off the top of your head, like you open a phone, you know where all the ribbon cables are supposed to be when you put it back together. You've done this many times. Does it ever go wrong? Like, how long did it take you to get good at taking apart phones?
I would say most phones that I take apart, I have 1 or 2 screws left over afterwards.
Nice.
So I would not say I'm like the most professional at putting them back together again. Although, when does this podcast go up? In relation,
let's call it a week and a half.
Okay, cool. So by the time this podcast goes up, I will have already done the Fold 4 teardown. Oh, the Flip 4 teardown. Yeah. And I actually took that completely apart, screen off and everything, and put it back together. So I'm very impressed with the build quality of that.
I am also, I mean, that seems like probably one of the harder ones to take apart and put back together. I haven't actually taken apart. Yeah. Well, okay, this is the question I was going to ask you. So this is something that's been on my mind for a while. When I get a review unit of a phone, there's a very specific set of things that you're allowed to do with it and not allowed to do with it. And at the top of the list every time is like, you can't take it apart, you can't durability test it, you can't break it, you can't do any of the stuff that Zack does to the phone. So don't even think about it. Yep. So I see all that. I'm like, all right, Zack. So you spend the extra time, you probably buy it from the manufacturer, you do what you got to do. But is there a difference in the way you work with some manufacturers? Are there some that are cool with sending you something knowing that you're going to take it apart?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been super, super upfront. Like, there's been several times where a company has reached out to me and been like, hey, can we send you a review unit? And I'm like, do you know who I am and what I do to phones? And then they're like, oh, yeah, never mind. We're all out of review units.
Dang.
And so that's happened several times.
Wow.
But I mean, there has been companies that have been okay with it. Like, Nothing sent me their phone knowing what I was going to do to it. OnePlus sent me their phone knowing what I was going to do to it. That's super. And like, I've been straight up front, like, there's no special favors or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Even though I get the phone, and, that has kind of come back to bite OnePlus a little bit. But
no, I was going to say, those are literally the two companies I would have thought of who would be cool with getting you a device, knowing what might happen, but being fine with it. Okay, have you been surprised by any durability test results? I mean, you squeeze an iPad, it breaks in half. That's kind of nuts. I'm imagining your face off camera is a little bit wide-eyed when that happens. But have you been impressed by something passing or super shocked by a failure?
I would say the one that comes to mind first of all is just the folding phones. Like, I seriously thought that they would be able to be snapped in half. Every single time I grab one, I'm like, yeah, this can definitely break, but then it doesn't. Yeah. And so that's just nuts to me.
Yeah, bending it backwards seems like it should just snap right in half, but they do survive with impressive consistency. That's pretty sick. You've seen the Apple Watch Ultra?
I have.
Do you expect that to fare any differently, or do you even want to test a watch like that?
I do. I mean, I've done watches in the past. I do want to check their Sapphire, and I think it'd be fun to test it up against Google's new, or was it Samsung that just came out with the Sapphire watch? One of them just came out with one. And so in the past, Apple has been using kind of like a subpar impure Sapphire, and I want to see if they've continued that and to see if Samsung has the same supplier of Sapphire as Apple does.
Yeah, has there ever been deeper grooves at a different level than we typically see? I've watched probably 50 or 60 videos, and it's always scratches at a level 6, deeper grooves at a level 7. Is that every time?
Got it. Except for HTC had a Sapphire phone that came out a while back. Duraforce, Kyocera Duraforce Ultra is a Sapphire phone as well. So there are a couple Sapphire phones out there. And then Apple has a Sapphire watch with the same sapphire as their camera lenses.
And those get all the way to 9?
No, Apple Sapphire is a level 6 still, even though they say it's Sapphire. But if you look at like a Tissot watch, which is actual Sapphire, those are level 8 with deeper grooves level 9.
Okay.
Or 7 and 8. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want, because there's like obviously it's built to like sustain drops and all sorts of other weird things. You might hit it up against a rock or something, but it was always fascinating watching the tests that you get to do. Okay. This is from one YouTuber to another. What is your workflow like? You get a new idea or a device for a video. Walk me through like the steps that you go through to make a JerryRigEverything video.
Oh man. I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and you've been doing this for so long. Like your flow has probably changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
Back when I was in college, when I think it was around like when I was hitting like 1 or 2 million subscribers, my bed was in one corner of the room. My computer setup was in the other corner of the room, and my phone teardown setup was next to my computer. It's like I could literally wake up in the morning, do a teardown, edit all day, and go back to sleep all in the same room.
Yep.
And that workflow was pretty tight. Then obviously I kind of, expanded, got my own warehouse. And then I kind of branched out into other projects as well. I would say currently I try to do like 2 videos a week. Mm-hmm. And my team, I have a bunch of people with the not a wheelchair side of things, which maybe we can get to later. But my core like JerryRig team is just me and one of my buddies from high school, who's my editor. And he's been doing the job for the last 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
And he lives in Texas and does everything remote. But he's been a super time saver for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say my college setup reminds me a lot of what you just described. It was like a bed on one wall and a desk on the other wall, and then a computer under the desk, and you just roll out of bed and just shoot and then roll back into bed. That was the whole thing.
Yep.
No, I didn't know you had a team for the channel, or at least a second person helping you edit. So you send them footage, I imagine, and they just send you back the finished thing?
Yeah, and he handles all the Facebook stuff. Personally, I really like Twitter and Instagram. Those are the 2 that I, kind of contribute myself to. But my editor handles Facebook, because that platform is not my favorite. Yep. And so I've realized that the Facebook audience is completely different than the YouTube audience. And I can post the same video on both platforms and no one ever cares.
Yeah, so we have a lot in common. I also don't spend too much time on Facebook, but have also been convinced of the lack of overlap, and so figured might as well have that post in some way, which is interesting. Hey, thanks for watching this clip. We appreciate you checking out the Clips channel. Of course, if you're here and you haven't already hit that ruby red subscribe button, you should definitely smash that with your Mo's pick, specifically because it will scratch at a different level than the normal. Pop quiz, what level would Ruby scratch and have deeper level grooves at? Let me know in the comments.